Chapter 21. Perfect Score. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Lee Muyun picked up the phone and dialed Chief Chu Lee's number. Unfortunately, the chief's cell phone was off. Lee Muyun then anxiously dialed the number of the chief's assistant Dong Yuewu. Yuewu, how come chief's phone is off? Where did you guys go? Lee Muyun asked hastily. We are at the New York headquarters attending a short meeting. We won't be back until dusk. Dong Yuewu explained. Director Lee, do you have any important news you want me to pass on to Chief? Lee Muyun thought for a bit. We have good news for him, but since you guys are coming back at night, I will just wait at the office. Give me a call when you guys are back. I've noted it down, don't worry. After hanging up, Lee Muyun let out a long breath. Misjudging Han Lang's potential was a big mistake, but luckily it wasn't too late. After Chu Li gets back and hears Lee Muyun's report, he would for sure provide Han the best arrangement. Top treatment was for sure, and a personal training director was also essential. In conclusion, all available resources must be used to train Han. After all, with Han's SSS-ranked power and stunning potential, his future was unmeasurable. Lee Muyun was still thinking, and Monk, who had been paying close attention to the broadcast, jumped up in happiness. Look! Han passed the second round of the pressure exam. They even lit fireworks in the sky. Fireworks! Lee Muyun was stunned for a sec and turned right to the screen, only to see that Han had already walked out of the sandstorm. Although the raging wind had ripped Han's cloth apart, the sharp grains of sand had left marks on Han's face, but Han's steps were still as firm as always. Walking with his head up proud, his face carried the pride of a victor. Congratulations to contestant Han Lang from Earth for passing the second test with a perfect score. Lee Muyun was shocked. He looked at Han's scoreboard, which suddenly had increased by 350 points. A perfect score. Shwa, the light flashed past Han's eye and he was teleported to the public square where he had started. His clothes were back to normal and the wounds on his face had recovered. After all, it was just a virtual test. All you needed was for the system to rewrite some data and everything could go back to normal. On the public score, two soldier-like young girls were chatting. One of them, a red-haired girl, asked in curiosity, "Where's the United Government of Earth?" Apparently a monster from there passed the second round with a perfect score and I've never even heard of that place. The other black-haired girl answered, "Hee, you don't know this, but the United Government of Earth is indeed a small place, but they are famous for producing monsters. Last galactic meet, Earth sent an Esper named Kolake, a 5-star Esper, and without any reinforcement he broke through a 7. The red-haired girl thought for a sec. Kolake. I do have a blurry memory about him, but 10 years ago I was too young, so I probably forgot. The chat between the two girls was heard by Han. So Senior Kolake was also a pretty face, haha, but what's a 7? Whenever someone passes a test with a perfect score, the system would broadcast the news in public in order to encourage more contestants to be like them. Everyone in the public square now all knew about Han. Many people were talking about him. After all, only a few can pass the second test with a perfect score. But Han did not feel proud at all because he knew very clearly that he was able to make it only because of his power, which provided immunity to all other powers. Following the third round of pressure exam would be the battle segment. That was when Han might actually screw up because he had never learned any fighting techniques. Now thinking about that, time was tight. Han decided not to wait till 1 week after and he went ahead and started the third test. That way, he can clear up his schedule and focus on going to the extreme frost domain to shut himself away to train. Han made up his mind and went straight towards the third test's teleporter. The third test was called the Climb of Frost Mountain, and a snow mountain of over 1,000 meters high appeared in front of Han. It looked just like an icy pyramid, with multiple paths leading to the top. At the top of the mountain sat a sacred temple, shining with golden light and emitting a mysterious feeling. Han didn't hesitate and he started walking right away. The path to the top had blue stones built as steps. It didn't look difficult, and the mountain was only a few thousand meters high. But, only the ones really climbing it understood the horror within. The mountain wind was howling, the gusts hitting Han's body were icy like blades. Suddenly there was a snowstorm and immediately after, it changed to hail. There were sometimes even rain. The rain water made the steps a lot more slippery, and there were no handles on the side of the steps, so people could easily slip and fall into the deep abyss that surrounded the mountain. Out of the 3 assessments in pressure exam, only this one had a redo option. Every contestant can take this test 3 times, and the best score will be calculated. It really goes to show something about how difficult this test was. Oh shit man. Gabong, sound of people falling, fuck. Gabong, don't push. Gabong. If you look at it from the spectator's perspective, snow mountain climbing is actually pretty interesting. The majority of the people chose to help each other out to climb. Although climbing in groups may seem like a good idea, but it has several deadly weaknesses. Sometimes, the moment one guy in the group trips and falls, the whole team will be dragged into the abyss. Of course Han wouldn't choose to cooperate with others. He found the path with the least people and chose to climb by himself. As he walked, he looked at his 2 sides and saw that sometimes people fell down head first, other times people fell with their butts first, and sometimes a bunch of people hugged each other tightly and screamed as they fell down. The people that chose the lonely paths were mostly elites of at least 4 stars, and Han, the beginner Esper, was considered to be out of place to be taking this path. However, his speed was not slow at all, moving up at a constant pace 1 step at a time. Every time Han came close to another climber, they would all voluntarily stop and make way for Han. When the screen beside Han showed that he was only a beginner with a power source index score of 42, everyone was very surprised. Seeing him climbing was like watching a demon, but no one asked any questions. The unbearable pain from climbing made everyone unwilling to waste any energy on things like talking. The snowstorm hit and Han slowed down his footsteps. The hail storm struck. Han put out his arms above his head and kept advancing. Because of the fact that Han was immune to powers, climbing this mountain was like an ordinary climb, it was purely for exercising his body. To any normal guy, climbing a mountain of 1,000 meters was not too big of a problem, not to mention that Han was an Esper. Although his power source index was a bit lower, but he was still stronger than normal guys. After 3 hours, Han was already in the final stage. The road signs showed that Han was only 50 meters away from the top. Near the sign was the final resting platform before the top, and all contestants were welcome to take a break there without having to worry about falling down into the abyss. Han took a look around. Other than himself, there was only one more person. It was a girl, small in size with a cute face and shiny golden hair. Wasn't that the Yi Weiwei he saved a while back? Yi Weiwei was still wearing the black leather clothes with only her small hands and face exposed. She was squatting on the ground and breathing heavily. Her pretty face was also as white as the snow. Yi Weiwei rose her head and saw Han and was stunned immediately. In her mind, Han was just a shameless guy with some perverted or evil intentions, and at this moment, that pervert was actually smiling and waving at her. In order to come this far, Yi Weiwei had used up most of her energy and she felt that she was about to break down. She couldn't even feel her legs. And looking at Han, whose face and breath was still normal, who still had the energy to wave and greet Yi Weiwei, she felt it was extremely unfair. What a coincidence. Han laughed and said, if Yi Weiwei still had energy, she would have cursed at Han for sure. But now she didn't even have the energy to be mad at anyone. And this Han guy with no awareness was actually waving at her and walking closer to her. As soon as Yi Weiwei thought about the last time Han grabbed her hand, she started to get angry. The thunderstorm girl Yi Weiwei's hands was something that people can touch casually. From a baby to now, not even her parents have touched her hands before, but now this male stranger did. What? Yi Weiwei had a stubborn personality, and now seeing Han, her personality got triggered again. She grit her teeth, gave Han the evil eye, turned around and started sprinting towards the top. Only 50 more meters. If I can just hold on for a little longer, I can make it. I can't lose to this shameless pervert. Yi Weiwei was encouraging herself. As for Han, of course he didn't know what was going on. It was fine that Yi Weiwei didn't thank him, but instead she ran. Shrugging his shoulders, Han followed Yi Weiwei and started advancing towards the top. Han was still maintaining a constant pace to climb, but Yi Weiwei was using as much energy as she could, which violated the most basic rule in climbing mountains. When climbing, the worst thing you could do was rush. With a long road up to the top, how can the path be finished by rushing? One must be patient and take it one step at a time. Of course, Yi Weiwei just climbed a few steps and began to feel dizzy. She felt as if her energy was being sucked away from her body and her legs were shaking. But she was honestly really stubborn. Even though she was almost completely out of energy, she was still clenching her teeth and not giving up. For a 14-year-old girl, this personality was very rare and impressive. But Han had power immunity. You really couldn't compare the amount of pressure Han faced in comparison to Yi Weiwei. Snow, hail, chilly wind, those were all nothing to Han but were all fatal threats to Yi Weiwei. Suddenly a piece of hail struck Yi Weiwei's head, and it acted as the final straw that broke the camel's back. She couldn't hold on anymore, her body tilted, and started falling to the right side into the abyss. Chapter 22. Goodbye, Yi Weiwei. You are listening at novelfull.audio. When Yi Weiwei's body started tilting to the side, Han was already right behind her. He again reached out to her without thinking. Honestly, it didn't really matter how pretty she was, the majority of people would help when they see someone falling in front of them. It was a type of natural reflex. Han pulled Yi Weiwei back from the edge of the cliff but didn't let go of her little hands. Instead, he continued dragging her while walking towards the top of the mountain. Mountain climbing isn't supposed to be done like this. There's a good saying, your desperation for speed may actually slow you down. Pay attention to below, step at where I stepped. Don't move randomly, otherwise both of us will fall into the abyss and then we are both screwed. Han was like a nice older brother holding Yi Weiwei's hand, and Yi Weiwei started having a very strange feeling. She was already extremely exhausted, her brain felt as though it short-circuited and lost the ability to think. She just let Han lead her by hand. After all, Yi Weiwei was still a girl, and age 14 was the beginning of adolescence. Due to her unique power, Yi Weiwei was never touched by anyone before, and if it wasn't because of Han, she might never have been touched in her entire lifetime. Do you still remember the first time holding hands with an opposite sex? That heart-racing and blushing feeling, that's how Yi Weiwei was feeling right now. Her face had mysteriously turned red, her heart started beating faster, her palms started to become a little sweaty. To Yi Weiwei, it's a feeling she never experienced before. The mountain path was tough, although Han had void end, they were still walking very slowly. Yi Weiwei didn't know what to do, and she felt like she was led by a mysterious feeling. Because of Han's power immunity ability, Yi Weiwei's whole body felt cold but her hand that was held by Han felt really warm. Yi Weiwei started feeling the urge to lean her entire body onto Han because to her, Han was like a warm furnace. What she needed the most right now was this kind of warmth. It felt kind of strange, but Han's hand was really warm. Yi Weiwei realized that she doesn't want to let go. Finally, Han and Yi Weiwei had passed the last step and arrived at the top of the mountain. The system automatically restored both of their stamina. Yi Weiwei felt a sudden relief and sat right down beside Han, who was also breathing heavily. Now we should be fine, can you let go of my hand? Han said with a faint smile. Yi Weiwei just realized that she was still holding onto Han's hand very tightly, as if she was scared that Han would leave her. Yi Weiwei's stubbornness started to surface again, quickly taking back her snow-white hand. The two sat side by side on the ground, facing 1,000 miles of snow. It was such a beautiful scenery. Yi Weiwei started to take a closer look at Han out of curiosity. A little older, not ugly but not handsome. His body wasn't really buff but not skinny either. Then again, he was pretty handsome when he smiled. This guy was like a monster, being able to touch her hand and still be fine. Thinking about that, Yi Weiwei started looking at her little hands. Her fingers were white and slim, very perfect. Maybe because of the fact that she always wore gloves, Yi Weiwei's hands were maintained a lot better than other girls. However, they were weak as if they were boneless, and Han knew about it since he had held it before. It's going to be a difficult battle test later, Yi Weiwei said suddenly. Right after she finished, she felt like giving herself 2 slaps. Why would she tell this shameless pervert about this? Did her head short-circuit or something? Han nodded slightly, but said as if thinking of something else, yeah, but after this we probably won't meet again. Yi Weiwei really wanted to ask why, but she stopped herself at the last moment. It would be like as if she cared. She had too much pride to ask. After all, Earth is too weak, but it's still my family. Han patted himself on the butt to get rid of the snow, took one more look at this beautiful girl in blonde hair, but Yi Weiwei nervously turned her little face away. It was nice meeting you, I have to leave now, Han said, and walked into the sacred temple with big steps. The third test's bonus mark was automatically given, as long as one completes the walk. After all, this test was way too difficult for the majority of the people. The sky was lighting up once again with fireworks which then transformed into words, congratulating Han on passing with a perfect score once again. This really brought out the admiration and jealousy of the crowd of espers that were still struggling on the mountain. But, Han didn't really care about the attention, he went straight back home. When he returned to Earth, Li Muyun wasn't there. Monk and some other espers that tried the test all congratulated Han. Han took a look at the time since he already arranged with Li Qi to go to the hospital with him to see how 4th Grandpa was doing after taking the 0.degree healing potion and revitalizers. It was already almost time. So he quickly said goodbye to everyone and left the Esper administration hastily. On the other side of the Milky Way, Yi Weiwei's house. L.RG Han and Yi Weiwei originally came from 2 different worlds. Han lived in a small home on Earth and didn't own an assessment or simulation pod. Instead, he had to go to the Esper administration to use the public one. But Yi Weiwei lived in a mansion that could be compared to a king's palace, and she owned not just one simulation pod but also specific rooms to store different sized and purposed simulation pods. Now, Yi Weiwei had returned from the pressure exam, but she didn't leave the room and instead walked to the window and opened it. She stared at the flat green grass field and the borderless forest outside her house. The tall mountains and waterfalls in the distance, even the birds flying in the sky, they were all personal possessions of the Yi family. Yi Weiwei leaned at the window and looked outside, in her gloves. In her not very long lifetime of experience, she never experienced anything as exciting as today. Born in wealth, what she wanted was not beautiful clothes nor delicious cuisine, but freedom. She could easily own everything in this world, but freedom. The freedom to wear short dresses like the other girls, the freedom to pick up a little rabbit and have a few kitties in the house, these were all what Yi Weiwei could never have. Although the Yi family's mansion was gigantic, there wasn't a single pet. When Weiwei was very small, her father had once given her a puppy as a pet. It was a beautiful white galactic hound with big, round, watery eyes and a small tail that was wagging non-stop. But when the cute puppy jumped into Weiwei's arms for a hug, a tragedy happened. The thunderstorm girl's fearful power had easily killed the puppy. Weiwei looked at the little puppy laying lifeless in her arms and was sad for a long time. It was also from that day forward, she began to realize she was going to be alone for the rest of her life. Until today, Weiwei met a guy, a very special person. Han wasn't like those charming princes on white horses, but Han was also not scared of her at all, unlike the other guys that would hide somewhere in fear whenever they see her, with their eyes filled with despise. Thinking about that, Wei Wei couldn't help but lower her head to look at her little hands. A pair of white and beautiful hands, but they were no longer innocent. They have been held by a boy. Yi Hua, the old faithful senior servant, hid behind the door outside, trying to peek to see what was going on. "What are you doing, sir?" the giant guard captain Yi Xiangdong asked curiously. Yi Hua smiled, looking at my lady. "Today someone touched my lady's hand." Yi Xiangdong became furious immediately, his face turned completely dark. "Who is it? Which bloody bastard? Let me go kill him." Yi Hua frowned. "You shut up. Do you not get our family's situation? If another family's ladyship get touched by outsiders, then it's a crime, but someone being able to touch our young lady is a gift from heaven. Stupid, can you use your brain?" Yi Xiangdong thought for a bit and finally realized it. Immediately, this grown man broke down crying. "Isn't he scared of my lady's thunderstorm?" he asked in surprise. "Apparently not." Old servant Yi Hua answered, "This young man may have a unique power that can control my lady's fearful thunderstorm. He took my lady by her hand and took her past third assessment's final checkpoint." Yi Xiangdong's face was now covered in tears. He couldn't help himself and cried, "Heaven has finally opened its eyes. Someone can actually control my lady's thunderstorm. Our Yi family is saved." "Which family does this prince belong? How does his family background look? Where does he live? If he says no, I can bring a team and capture him and bring him over." "Capture my ass." Yi Hua's face turned angry. "This might be our Yi family's only opportunity, so you stay quiet. If you ruin my lady's opportunity, watch how I will deal with you." P.S. Thank you so much guys, the novel has reached over 100 votes on novelupdate.com. Let's keep the votes going so we can let more people enjoy the novel. Cucumber Strips. Chapter 23. Liu, you are listening at novelfull.audio. Earth. Han thought it was completely normal to hold hands with Yi Weiwei. It was just holding hands, completely normal. Also, Han was doing it to help her, having no other perverted thoughts. Han took the subway and arrived at the subsidiary hospital of the Esper administration. This place was specifically open for Espers, and it was also one of the privileges Espers had on Earth. This subsidiary hospital took up a large piece of land. There were 2 giant gardens at the front and back of the hospital, provided for the recovering Espers to take walks and exercise. All the equipment here were also the most advanced equipment in the world. Han gave Li Qi a call and the two met at the front of the hospital. The moment Li Qi saw Han, he started yelling excitingly, "Han! Your 0-degree region healing medicines are godly. Fourth Grandpa had it last night and he could already walk today morning. The doctors did a checkup on him and they couldn't even believe it. They said that Fourth Grandpa's 0-degree region is recovering at an incredible speed. Not only is it fully healed now, it's even possible that Fourth Grandpa can go back to his pinnacle condition in his life." Han smiled, "As long as it's effective. Let's go and check with your Fourth Grandpa." Li Qi said in a hurry, Right, Fourth Grandpa knew that you were coming and he is already waiting for you at the garden. He said he needs to thank you in person." Han Lang was shocked. "There's no need to thank me. It's something we should do for our seniors." Walking into the hospital's garden in the back, there was an elder sitting in an arbor by the lake looking at the lotus flowers, with his back facing Han. Beside the elder was a muscular man in his 30s, currently making tea for the elder. "Fourth Grandpa, Han Lang's here." Li Qi ran to the side of the elder and said. The elder turned around, and their eyes met. Li Qi's Fourth Grandpa had a pair of eyes like an eagle. Although he was pretty old now, his eyes were still sharp, radiating an impressive force that only an elite Esper soldier could. "Turns out that the benefactor is here, hurry and come sit." Xiao Wu, hurry and make some tea for the benefactor. Fourth Grandpa said with a smile. Han tried to kindly decline but was forced down to the seat by the guy named Xiao Wu, who said, "Your 0-degree region healing medicine saved teacher's career as a fighter. That's a huge kindness, let's discard the formal manners." Han could only obey and let Xiao Wu pour him a cup of tea. He sat right beside Li Qi's fourth grandpa, with Xiao Wu and Li Qi both standing on the side. "Fourth grandpa, I heard from Li Qi that you are recovering nicely." Han delightfully asked. Li Qi's grandpa smiled and said, "I can feel that my 0-degree region is healing, and the doctor said I can possibly return to my pinnacle condition. But I don't have too much demands, I'm happy enough that the medicine can save my life." Han answered, "What are you talking about, seeing how energetic you are, it's no problem to live another couple hundred years." Everyone started laughing. Li Qi's fourth grandpa said, "A couple more 100 years. Wouldn't that make me monster by then?" Han answered in a serious manner, "I heard that the higher the level of an esper, the longer they can live. This time fourth grandpa's 0-degree brain region can fully heal, it might be even possible to go up in level. So a couple 100 years is still a conservative figure." Fourth grandpa looked at Han and said, "You little guy really know what to say. Let me ask you, this 0-degree healing medicine is so magical, where did you get it? It must have cost a lot of money, right?" Li Qi started nervously giving Han the eye signal. His fourth grandpa is a man of honor, if he hears that the healing medicines were made from cruelly extracting brain fluids from young espers, he might be unhappy. Han got the signal and said, "I got it from a friend. Specifically how he got it, I don't really understand as well. As for the money, it's not a problem. It's just me paying my respect for you." "Oh right, fourth grandpa, you look very familiar, but I don't remember where I've seen you before." Xiao Wu whispered on the side, "You probably saw on TV. Teacher's real name is Li Yu." Han was completely shocked. "Li Yu? One of Kolake's 3 teachers. No wonder you look very familiar." Kolake was the strongest esper in the history of Earth, and he was quite famous in the entire Milky Way. He had 3 teachers, and they were all the highest-ranked espers on Earth. It turned out that Li Qi's fourth grandpa was one of Kolake's teachers. Li Yu gestured with his hands, and his eyes dimmed a little. "The past is the past, let's not mention it." Han knew, it was still unclear whether Kolake was dead or alive, and without him as the pillar supporting Earth, it was still unknown whether Earth could make it through the galactic meat and avoid being colonized. Remembering these didn't help in improving Li Yu's mood. Senior Li Yu also realized that he might have made the atmosphere less joyful, so he quickly asked Han, "According to Li Qi, you are also an esper, and you even have the respected SSS ranked power. As an esper, what are your future plans?" Han started making fun of himself. "My power itself is pretty good, but my foundation is way too horrible. After a few days I plan to go to Siberia and focus on training for a bit to see if I can improve my stats and level." Li Yu knew about Han's background, but what triggered his interest was why he wanted to go to Siberia. It was such a rural area. "Is your trip to Siberia arranged by the Esper administration?" Li Yu asked in curiosity. Han shook his head and said, "No, it's my own decision. My ability, Void End, can nullify any Esper's abilities, but if I want to fight back then I desperately need to train my body and practice martial arts. So I decided to find an extremely cold area to do some training." Han continued, "Originally I wanted to go to the South Pole, but there's no base there and it will be hard to get resources. That's why I decided to go to Siberia." Li Yu nodded, "Practicing martial arts and training your body in the extreme cold. Who taught you that?" Han answered, "A friend of mine said practicing martial arts is like practicing your life. Only in the extreme cold, when one push oneself to their limit, they can learn the true arts of fighting in a solid set of skills. That's why I want to give it a shot." Li Yu was deep in thought for a second and starting talking, "Your friend is very right, humans can reveal the most potential when they are pushed to their limits and placed at the gate of death. He told you to go to an extremely cold place to train. Although it's kind of cruel, but it's still the right path. But no matter how low your power index is, you are still an Esper, so the normal level of cold is still not enough to push you to your limit. Han stopped for a second, and said, "That's true, I feel a lot stronger than before too. Aside from Siberia, where else can help me train better?" Liu considered for a bit and made a decision. He smiled and said, "Han, since you know who I am, you probably know what I do, right?" Han nodded. "You are the chief of Extinction Site Administration. It said so on TV." Liu laughed. "If you are not scared of hard work, we are working on an extinction site at the South Pole. It has the environment you want there, an extremely cold environment. After all, I still owe you a big favor. How about this? I will get you into the Extinction Site Administration, then I will give you any training environment and equipment you want. You don't have to worry about anything and just focus on training." This was such good news. What is the Extinction Site Administration? It's not an exaggeration to call it the most important institution of the United Government of Earth. It was in control of the top confidential intelligence and an abundant amount of resources, so only the strongest and most loyal Espers can be qualified to work at the Extinction Site Administration. Of course, Han didn't expect Liu to take him on a tour in the legendary extinction site. He was happy enough to find the right environment to train and have the resource support from the Extinction Site Administration. It's the best treatment you can get on Earth. Fourth Grandpa, don't worry, I just want a good place to concentrate on training. I won't give you any trouble. Han said very sincerely. Liu thought for a second, and turned to Xiao Wu on his side and said, "You take care of this arrangement, and 2 days from now Han will leave with us to the South Pole. Give Han the best training and living conditions." Chapter 24. Under the candlelight. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Around dusk, Han left the hospital and took the subway back to the city. He came off the subway at the busy business sector where the last battle took place. He met up with Cheng Zhong and Monk as promised. Today was the 7th day since the death of the 7 Espers, and the citizens were holding a memorial ceremony for them. A lot of people came off the subway at this stop, and Han just followed the crowd and slowly exited the station. He was shocked by what he saw on the street. At the moment, the sky hadn't completely darkened yet, and many people have already lit up candles. White candles were placed everywhere on both sides of the streets, even on the windows of the high-rises on the side. Night slowly fell. It was as if people had made previous arrangements. No one turned on any lights, and all there were was dim lights from the candles lining the streets. The atmosphere was filled with sorrow and remembrance. This night, the whole city was lit up by candles. A lot of children were holding lanterns, also containing white candles. The swinging around of the lanterns caused the dim light to flicker. A young mother led her daughter and walked past Han. The little girl was really small and was holding a lantern. Han noticed that the candle inside the lantern was also very small. "Mommy, what are Espers?" the little girl asked in a very small voice. "They are a group of very strong soldiers." The mother answered with a faint smile, "They fight in battles to protect the Earth and us." The little girl thought for a second, "Will they protect me too?" "Yep." "Will they protect Mommy?" "Yep." "Will they protect Grandpa?" "Yep." "Will they protect Grandma?" "Yep, Espers will protect our family, and everyone at your kindergarten. They will also protect the aunties and uncles on the street. They will protect everyone." The mother tried to explain to his little girl. Oh, the little girl as if understood something, and she nodded her head heavily once, and said in a delightful voice, "I understood, Espers are good people." Han smiled faintly, quickly walked past this cute little girl. Sometimes, people's impression of Espers were not like today. There are always going to be reports on the news about how Espers were using their power to bully the weaklings and causing chaos. But, people have all understood from this incident that, for both espers and ordinary people, there are a lot of bad people among the espers, but also a lot of good people. This is how the world has always been. The good people were always silent before they stepped out against the evil. Just like Pangswalin, that young man who jumped off the building holding a bronze bull statue, the one who sacrificed himself to damage the raiders' ship and protect the civilians. Now Pangswalin has become a hero known as the Bronze Bull Warrior. His last words, "No matter how weak Earth is, it's still my home," was now known by everyone. But before Pangswalin became a hero, he was just a silent and hardworking physical education teacher. He never bragged about his status as an esper, and just lived an ordinary life. The real heroes only stand up when the world need them, but normally they just remain unknown. As the person that experienced that battle firsthand, Han saw with his own eyes that these espers who usually remained humble and unknown put their fears aside and ran straight to the battlefield. Within 1 minute, the battlefield had already gathered over 40 espers. Within 3 minutes, there were already over 200 espers arriving. They were not soldiers, but when disasters struck, their speed was even faster than the army, and they were even more fearless. More and more people gathered. Even though each candle provided a very weak light, when gathered they could still light up the darkness. Han stopped at a store's window and saw that the large screen TV inside was broadcasting the worldwide memorial ceremony from Beijing, Shanghai, and Guangzhou. Starting with these Asian cities, wherever the night fell, the candles representing hope lit up. Seoul, Taipei, Tokyo, the candle lights crossed the vast Pacific Ocean and arrived at America, then from the Atlantic Ocean to Europe. Han felt someone standing behind him. He turned around and saw Monk and Qingzhong. He didn't know when Qingzhong shaved his ponytails, but now he was bald, and Monk was carrying a giant backpack. These two baldies standing together, it really looked like one big monk and one small monk. "Your hair." Qingzhong touched his head which was now bald, and said with a smile, "Shaved it. Every day just to manage those tails I could waste an hour. If I got that much time I'm better off eating a few more pounds of meat. Where's your headphones?" "Threw it away." "Baseball shirt." "Hey, why are you so troublesome?" Qingzhong shook the fat on his body and said, "I will put it this way. After seeing you guys tonight, I'm planning to shut myself away and concentrate on training and becoming fatter. I will be giving my all to prepare for the second stage of the pressure exam. You guys don't have to call me, I threw my phone away too." Monk shrugged his shoulders, "What a coincidence. I was about to tell you guys too. Tonight I'm going back to my mountain to train, and I came here tonight to say goodbye. The first stage of the pressure exam was not my strength but combat is. So I'm going to take advantage of this time to improve myself." Han slightly nodded his head. Seems like he was not the only one changed by this battle. Monk and Qingzhong also became more hardworking than before. "It's really a coincidence." Han thought a bit and said, "Before when I didn't know I had power, I always thought, if the sky falls then the tall guys can handle it, it has nothing to do with me. And today I finally realized, I'm actually that tall guy, and if the sky falls I need to give it my all to handle it." Han continued, "Actually, I'm here to say goodbye too. In 2 days, I will be going to the Extinction Site Administration. They found a place to train for me, and I'm going to be shutting myself away from the world too." Qingzhong didn't say anything. Next year was going to be the year galactic meet takes place, and it was very possible that Earth will be turned into a colony for another planet. Even if Earth is lucky enough to not be colonized, there were still a lot of raiders that were eyeing Earth covetously and menacingly. This was the galactic era. It was also a merciless era where the jungle rules applied. As the only army on Earth, the espers were facing a lot of pressure. Monk asked, "Extinction Site Administration. Li Muyun and Chu Li also wants to get you into their division office." Han answered, "What were they doing before then?" But I heard that a large crowd of espers are taking the initiative to apply to the administration and other battle organizations, so Chuli probably isn't short for hands. Ching Zhong nodded, "Yeah man, before there was Kulake handling everything for us. Espers were free to do whatever job they wanted. That's not the case now, without Kulake we have to shoulder the responsibility. If I can't pass the pressure examination then I'm applying straight to the Marines." Right after he finished his sentence, the watch on his wrist started beeping. Ching Zhong put his backpack on the ground and took out a piece of ham that was at least 2 pounds in weight. He opened his mouth wide and started swallowing the meat chunk by chunk. After seeing Han and Monk looking at him, Ching Zhong threw a photo at them. In the photo was a handsome young man with a muscular body. Aside from the little ponytails on his head, it was really hard to tell that this was how Ching Zhong used to look like. Ching Zhong sat on the floor and quickly shoved that giant piece of ham through his mouth into his stomach. He drank 2 mouthfuls of water, and started working on a second piece of ham. Han saw that Ching Zhong's neck had already turned red from the eating as if he was about to puke any time, yet he was still shoving meat down his throat non-stop. "I need to eat. I need to eat non-stop. There is no other choice, I'm a conversion descent esper, without fat then I have no fighting power. Without fighting power how can I protect anyone? I'd rather eat enough to turn into a pig, than to experience what happened that day again. If you guys want to laugh at me then go ahead, I don't care." Han and the monk of course didn't laugh at him since they only respected him more after seeing the photo. To other people, delicious cuisine was an enjoyment, but to Ching Zhong it was pure suffering. This bloody world, it had turned a handsome young man into the Ching Zhong right now. Han let out a light sigh. He raised his head and saw the endless candle lights, and all the people praying under that light. Such a sight, it was beautiful. Such pressure, it was unbearable. Chapter 25. South Pole Base. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Just on time, hours before leaving for the South Pole, Han finally received the package sent by Pathless Origin. He didn't even have time to open it before he was already on the military plane with Li Yu. Shua, the United Government's God-strength grade military cargo airplane, was traveling at an incredible speed. Aside from carrying Han, Li Yu, and a few other passengers, the cargo was also carrying supplies and resources for the base at the South Pole. Although these military-grade cargo airplanes were gigantic, it was also capable of ascending vertically and was equipped with 6 super-turbo engines. The plane quickly arrived at the aerospace in the South Pole. Han looked down from the plane, only to see a world covered in white snow. The Extinction Site Administration base looked like a chessboard from the sky. There was a giant spherical carbon fiber building in the center, surrounded by a couple more smaller spherical buildings that were connected by pipe-like transparent corridor. It looked quite modern. Stepping off the plane, Han's 2 feet touched the icy ground and he could immediately feel the chill entering his body. "We are here, this is our base. Anyone that enters this base will have to go through security, and if you want to leave the base you will need to write a report for approval. This place is not somewhere to just go in and out at will." Wu Di, previously called Xiao Wu by Li Yu, carefully explained to Han. Han nodded. The bases of the Extinction Site Administration were Earth's secrets, so the management and administration part was obviously stricter than anywhere else. A lot of people came out of the base to help transport the cargo, and Wu Di introduced Han to everyone. After hearing that Han cured Li Yu's 0-degree region atrophy, they all gave him a big thumbs up and became very welcoming towards him. After all, Li Yu was the pillar that was supporting the Extinction Site Administration, everyone's leader. Han did a huge favor for Li Yu, which was the same as doing a huge favor for everyone here, and not one of them knew how they could ever repay the favor. Li Yu went to the control center while Wu Di took Han on a tour around the base. You could tell that the Extinction Site Administration was very well funded and had access to a lot of resources due to all the equipment in the base. Aside from facilities that catered to normal day lives, there was even libraries, pool tables, tennis courts, 12 virtual training pods, spacious multi-purpose gyms, and so on. Han got a single room of about 20-something square meters. The window went all the way to the floor, which gave a beautiful view of the snow. There was also a vertical showering unit, a study desk and a small sofa. You can leave your things for now, let me take you to register your DNA data. Wu Di said. Han threw his stuff onto the bed and followed Wu Di to the center of the base. At the center of the base lied the headquarters, and it also served as the entrance to the extinction domain, an alternate space that you enter after entering the gate at the extinction site. Wu Di pointed at a spherical machine and said, "This is a complete DNA assessment system. It will not only record your DNA data but also track and record your power source index. You just have to stand on this machine for a few seconds, and you can come back anytime later on and to check your progress. The machine will automatically generate data table, telling you how effective your training is and what improvements to make. In addition, your DNA data is recorded as well, and that will be your passport here. We don't have any access cards at the base, we only use DNA." Han nodded, shocked by how advanced the equipment was. Just one machine could have that many purposes. BDNVL.M. At that moment Li Yu walked past with a few commanders from the administration and saw Han was about to do the DNA assessment. He was pretty interested in the results and he stopped to introduce Han to the other colleagues. "Here, this is Han, it's all because of him that I'm able to come back to base." Everyone nodded with respect and looked at Han with appreciation. The machine was silver-colored and it was like a tube. When someone stands in the tube, there will be a red ray that scans the entire body. Han stood still. Seconds later, the system screen displayed Han's basic statistics. Natural growth rate is 2.1. That can't be right. Wu Di looked at the results and was completely shocked. "Let me see." Li Yu curiously walked over. He stared at the screen for a long time and finally said in a deep voice, "It's really 2.1. Oh my God. Chief, did you just come back from the hospital or Taobao, Chinese Amazon? Growth rate 2.1, every day he just have to stand still and he can grow 2.1 points. Honestly, where did you dig up this monster? That's an incredibly high natural growth rate. It reminded me of Ko Lake." Within 3 days, Han's power source index increased by another 6 units, now he has 48 points of power source index. Including Chief Li Yu, everyone was thoroughly impressed by Han. Of course everyone was also confused. With such a high growth rate, Han should have already been a high-level warrior. Why is it that he was already an adult but he just hit the 48 mark? It was as if he had just acquired his power or something. Actually, Han indeed did just acquire his power recently, but he obviously had no good way of explaining power crystals, so he had no choice but to play dumb and pretend that he didn't know too. Li Yu patted Han on the shoulder and laughed. "Chu Li was just calling me last night asking me if you really agreed to join the Extinction Site Administration. I said yep, and he got so mad that he hung up my phone. So that's why. Such talent." Li Yu continued, "There's no point trying to discuss why your power source index didn't grow in the past, what's most important is to capture the present. Wu Di will take you to the training facility. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask him. And if I'm not busy, I will be paying attention to you too." Han got to know a lot of people on his first day at the base. He received a lot of compliments, especially on his natural growth rate. He didn't have to move a finger and he could already grow 2.1 points every day, and if combined with the 46 ensemble training, TL explained later, the growth speed would be even faster. Everyone thought he was someone God sent from heaven. That night, Han spent a few hours like usual to write the drug index, then he stopped at Pathless Origin's website and opened the chat window. "Teacher, I found a very ideal location for training. It's a miraculous body of water that doesn't freeze when the water goes below zero. I will soon be going in there to practice 46 ensemble training. Will there be anything I should do or pay attention to during training?" Han asked politely. Pathless Origin responded really quickly. In the past Han always waited for a long time, but unbeknownst to him, his response time has dramatically decreased. Now, Han gets a response immediately after he asks a question. The first time is of course very important. Did Little Black, TL, referring to Night Walker, give you any drugs? I bought some source energy pills from him. Source energy. I guess that will work. Take 3 doses of source energy pill. Don't bring your battle suit or weapon. Just go in naked into the water that's not lower than 0.10 Celsius. Stay there for at least 3 hours, only practice the first ensemble of the 46 ensemble training. Han was shocked, going into the freezing water naked and train. Take 3 times the normal dose of source energy pill. Hold for at least 3 hours. If Han didn't know that Pathless Origin was a pro, he will think that he's out of his mind for sure. This kind of training, it was a suicidal pace. Although Han had a little doubt on the inside, he knew that Pathless Origin had a bad temper, so he didn't dare to say more. He quickly thanked him and turned off the window. Han looked at his body. Ever since he became an Esper, his physical body properties have had very significant improvements. But will his body be able to hold 3 hours under 0.10 degrees Celsius water? On the bed was placed the black celestial python suit and his tritanium dagger tremor. The black battle suit had a great texture. It could reach 3 stars high for physical defense. Originally Han planned to wear this precious battle suit, but guess he has to wait a little longer. Han put away his suit, weapon, and laptop, retrieved the Dark Net access software back to his necklace and left the room. He headed towards that miraculous water spot. Underscore 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 underscore. Sorry guys, the story may have been progressing a little slowly right now, but don't worry, something exciting's going to happen soon. Anyways, thank you guys for being loyal readers of GNC. Chapter 26. Mad Training. You are listening at novelfull.audio. DNA assessment complete, access granted for entering extinction site level 1. The system said as the heavy, metal alloy gates opened. There was a very long passage going down to ground level, where a car running on tracks took the passengers to the first level, where the extinction site was. After Han got on, the electric car started moving automatically. After around 5 minutes, Han got off and came to the first transfer platform. Continuing straight ahead would be the entrance to the actual extinction domain, where the secret of this administration lied, and Han wasn't authorized to enter yet. 2 Esper soldiers were on the night shift. The blonde one that smiled a lot was named Charlie, and the guy with a big nose and black hair was named F.O. Lyman. Both of them were veterans in their 30s that had worked for a long time at the administration. Although their job was just to protect the entrance to the extinction domain, they still worked hard with no complaints. In their eyes, if they were not qualified to go into the domain, standing outside to guard it was still a great honor. Dusk approached. Wu Di had introduced them to Han before, so they all knew each other. Han greeted them, then went on a side track beside the entrance. When the Extinction Site Administration was exploring this site a few years ago, they found a miraculous pool of water near the entrance. The temperature of the water was below 0, but it wouldn't freeze. When Han said he wanted to find an extremely cold place for training, Li Yu immediately thought of this place. This pool of water was outside of the extinction domain, so even if Han was not some important personnel at the administration, training near the domain shouldn't be a problem. After discovering this pool, the administration installed a trail of lights near it, and Han followed them. The pool was like a terrace, divided into different layers, with each layer being a different temperature. Starting from the highest layer of 0 degrees Celsius, every layer going down was a 10 degrees Celsius decrease in temperature. With a total of 24 layers, the deepest layer of water reached 0.230 degrees Celsius. You must know that even absolute zero is only about 0.273 degrees Celsius. At this place, even the air was unbearably chilly. The pool's two sides had steps left behind by the prehistoric civilization. It seemed like a prehistoric intelligent species also frequently visited the pool. Unfortunately, the administration investigated the pool for a long time and still couldn't make sense of the purpose this extremely chilly pool served. If it could be used for Han's training, then it can be counted as useful. Pathless Origin told Han to start from a temperature of 0.10 degrees Celsius first, so Han went to the second layer, and put down the 46 Ensemble Training's frequency spectrograph on a piece of rock. 46 Ensemble Training was accepted by the Milky Way galaxy as the most effective foundation training. Apparently it was found when exploring an extinction domain. It was a type of aggregated training that enhances source energy, physical body, martial arts, and reflexes. Just like its name, it was composed of 46 sets of movements of increasing difficulty, from easy to tough. All the espers in the entire Milky Way all started their training with this with almost no exceptions. As well, they only started to learn other skills or techniques after learning the 46 Ensemble Training. As for the frequency spectrograph used for training and studying purposes, it was a fully automatic holographical projecting system. After turning it on, it was like a half-intellectualized virtual teacher that helped students practice. They pointed out the areas that were lacking and needed improvement during the training. Han didn't need anyone to give additional pointers when he trained, and that was because, in this era, the foundational training was completely intellectualized. It's pretty convenient. Aside from those extremely rich families that would still hire personal trainers, the majority of the espers started their training with instructional programs, and meeting teachers to learn usually happens after learning the 46 Ensemble Training. Han forced his hands down into the 0.10 degrees Celsius water, and the chilly water felt as if it was piecing through his skin, entering through the pores into the body. But Han was an esper after all, so the source energy could help him cancel out a portion of the cold he felt. Standing up, Han pressed the combat-sized medicine kit on his left wrist. It was the gift from Nightwalker, a type of small metal box that could contain all sorts of drugs. All you needed was to put the box close to your mouth and drugs will automatically pop out. This could run on either voice command or touch screen control. It was designed this way to improve convenience during battle, since during a fight that decided life and death, no one really had the time to take out a handful of drugs, pick out the ones they wanted and then put them back into their pocket. Intellectualized drug containers allowed soldiers to take drugs within the shortest time, so it enjoyed a high popularity in the market. Han placed his square, watch-sized medicine kit near his mouth. Source energy, 3 pills. Right after the words came out of his mouth, the kit automatically shot out 3 blue pills, and these high-tech training drugs melted immediately in Han's mouth, showing their effects right away. Han felt his own energy and power quickly increasing. After 20 minutes later, the drug will reach its maximum effect and will continue until the training ends. Han took off his clothes, turned on the frequency spectrograph, closed his eyes and jumped into the icy cold water. Experienced people all know that cold water was a lot more merciless than cold air. Cold water could pierce through skin and muscles and quickly suck out all the heat energy from the human body. The frequency spectrograph started working, projecting 2 holographical human shadows, one in front of Han, a virtual instructor, another one identical to Han. Whenever Han made a wrong move while practicing, there will be a deviation between him and his hologram. The hologram will turn from white to red so that Han was notified when his movements were not proper. Now beginning with the first ensemble. Up, stretch, preserve strength, transfer. The 46 Ensemble Training Frequency Spectrograph was a very advanced system. It will adjust the speed based on the status of the user, and will repeat moves whenever the user fails to perform it correctly. When Han was back home he watched some online videos and scratched the surface, but it was his first time using a legit frequency spectrograph. He carefully practiced with the hologram and tried his best to stay focused. But trying to focus in a 0.10 degrees pool was not an easy task. Han lost an incredible amount of heat energy every second, and his inner source energy started feeling the challenge of the harsh environment. It started to actively help Han fend off the cold, which was surprising and reassuring for Han. No wonder Pathless Origin consistently emphasized the importance of the cold environment. Source energy and zero-degree brain region are all reacting as a self-defense mode. In such a cold environment, the zero-degree brain region probably thought that my life was in danger, so it started to operate faster, and pushes source energy around my body at a faster speed to keep me warm. Han thought to myself. When the cold temperature approaches lethal levels, every organ inside Han's body started to operate like crazy. Putting up a great struggle in the face of death was a special property about humans, and it was also a property of the zero-degree brain region. Han had never experienced this feeling before. It was as if every cell inside his body was trying to fight for survival. But, after a while, the struggle began to lose effect. The cold was not only draining his heat away, but also his life. At the verge of collapsing, Han suddenly thought of what Pathless Origin said. Fight to kill. Hit every punch. Trade eye for eye. Only surrender in death. Without such a mindset, it is impossible to become elites. Han was completely affected by the sheer force of those words. The cold environment was like a battlefield. If he chooses to run away from the cold, what will happen if he joins the battlefield? Where could he run? Practicing martial arts was just like practicing your will to live, and training was like a battle. Without realizing it at first, Han started to feel a small yet miraculous change within his body. The more persistent he was to continue the training, the more the zero-degree region of his brain was influenced by that determination, releasing waves and waves of source energy. This energy entered Han's body and became the power that supported Han to continue the training. It's like a positive feedback loop. Only madmen that were persistent to push themselves to the verge of death could really unleash this off-the-chart amount of potential. It's just, Han's potential was a bit different. His zero-degree brain region didn't belong to him, but from succeeding an unknown ace esper. Chapter 27. Reached 2 stars. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Shua in the extremely cold pool, white steam was rising. Han's skin and muscles became crimson red, as if it was burning. His source energy was being released at an incredible rate, quickly circulating through Han's entire body to provide him the heat necessary for survival. Revealing potential at this amazing speed was not just the expansion of Han's zero-degree brain region, but a dramatically increased learning speed. The reason is simple. Han inherited his power from an ace esper, and ace espers had obviously practiced 46 ensemble training before. The insane training activated some memory locations inside Han's zero-degree brain region, allowing him to get more and more skilled with the movements that were already mastered by the ace esper before he passed away. The increasing speed of his movements along with further activation of the zero-degree region finally allowed Han to resist the icy water's intrusion into his body. Without exaggerating, Han felt like he took a walk in hell, came back to the mortal world and saw a completely different scenery. What improved was not only Han's source energy amount, but also his level. Pong, sound of something exploding. Suddenly, the source energy rushed out of Han's body like an explosion, pushing away the icy water surrounding him. Han suddenly felt like his brain became much clearer. The surrounding scenery didn't change, but the feeling changed, as if someone had placed wings on his back, allowing him to soar through the sky. When people were concentrated on something, time feels like it's flying by for them. When Han walked out of the icy pool of water, it had already been 4 hours. Putted on his clothes, Han returned to the base. At that time it had already become busy inside. Most people have woken up and went to the cafeteria to eat, chat, or grab a cup of coffee and sit by the corner to read today's newspaper. When walking across headquarters, Han decided to go for an assessment. He wasn't so sure the meaning behind the source energy explosion. It was only after 4 hours of training anyways. He felt very relaxed and free, as if all the impurity in his body was completely washed away, replaced by surging energy. The powerful DNA system was always monitoring Han's power source index, so Han just needed to find the data on the machine. After a few clicks on the screen, Han's real-time statistics was generated into a display appearing onto the screen. Rank, 2 stars. Power source index, 103. Han was speechless, so he had already passed 2 stars. He's now a 2-star ranked Esper. At the icy pool, when his 0-degree brain region suddenly releasing a large amount of source energy, it was actually a sign of advancement in rank. Within one night, Han's power source index increased by 55 points. It had more than doubled. That's incredible. Han grabbed a large cup of hot chocolate and 2 meat buns from the cafeteria and went back to his room. He turned on the computer and logged onto the Galactic Dark Net. Teacher, I followed what you said, and something unbelievable happened. My power source index increased by a lot in one night. My level is also 2-star now. What's happening? Han opened the chat box and asked Pathless Origin. It was as if Pathless Origin waited because he knew Han would ask him right away after training, so he quickly responded. Stupid. Inheriting someone else's power was never an easy thing. The power crystal was molded by the Esper's undying soul. Transferring someone's power into your brain is the easy part, the hardest part is the refinement. Because the power crystal not only has source energy, but also the Esper's soul that is unwilling to disappear, it's a lot more difficult. Those greedy power crystal smugglers obviously told you a lot of benefits to inheriting a power, liars. Those people's existence relies on tricking ignorant people like you. Successors and the deceased Espers have different physical attributes, past experiences, and also consciousness. If something goes wrong, it won't be as simple as not being able to fully inherit the power. It's also very possible for the deceased Esper's consciousness to collide with yours and cause the 0-degree brain region to explode. Yes, literally, an explosion, inside your brain. So, the inheritance-type Esper need to use the most extreme method to fully activate the full potential of the power, which is this method I taught you. So yes, inheriting power can go either way. You can either take over all the training results and abilities that the previous owner of Void End mastered, or if you fail, you will die faster. Han was left speechless. He never knew that inheriting someone else's power could be this dangerous. No wonder that even if the power crystals were sold on the dark net, the sales volume was always not too hot. It was actually because of the high risk associated with inheriting the power. Han thought for a bit and asked, Teacher, I never told you that I got my power from a power crystal. How did you know? Are you stupid? You are this old and you are still learning basic stuff. If you didn't get your power from a crystal, did it just fall out of the sky then? Okay. In conclusion, martial arts, you need to train with your life on the line. Successors of other people's power also need to train with their lives on the line. So now it's your destiny to put your life on the line for everything. You need to do that for training. Also for battles. If you want to be successful, then you have to push yourself with the most extreme methods and trade it with a comfortable life. Now, tell me, how much did your power source index increase? Han answered, under the 10 degrees pool, I trained for around 4 hours and my index number went from 48 to 103. Pathless Origin always respond very quickly, but after Han sent the last message, he actually didn't respond for a while. After many minutes, Pathless Origin finally replied, Yep, not too bad. Looks like you inherited from a very powerful Esper. If you still have energy, you can do a bit of training in the normal training room, but you don't need to train that hard in the pool anymore. Now just focus on solidifying the source energy you just gained. Next time you go to the pool to train, you just need to take one source energy pill. Keep the time you train to within 4 hours. Extreme training isn't about the time but the intensity. As long as you can push yourself to your limit for 10 minutes, the effect is way better than just doing normal training for 10 hours. You can come ask me again after you are done training tomorrow, that little black, TL. A cute nickname Pathless Origin has for Nightwalker. left your little troublesome brat with me, I'm going get him back for this. After sending that message, Pathless Origin left the chat room. He actually voluntarily told Han to find him tomorrow, that's the first time he said that. It was as if Pathless Origin has slowly gotten used to Han's daily questions. If one day Han doesn't ask him questions anymore, he might actually get lonely and feel uncomfortable. Han felt a great boost of confidence. Now his experience and physical strength were all increasing non-stop. Only after a few hours of sleep he was already able to jump out of bed fully rested. It was a bit too early to write the drug index, so Han decided to go to the training room to do a few normal training exercises. And since it was normal training exercises, Han could finally wear his brand new battle suit. He put on the black celestial python. It felt a bit cold, yet really soft, and there was an exquisite layer of scales which was what really protected the wearer. About the tritanium dagger tremor, it was really heavy, at least 80-something pounds. It was the weapon that enjoyed quite a bit of popularity among the fighters. Han tried to swing it around for a few times, but it felt kind of heavy so he couldn't do it with high proficiency. But that was okay since Han's level was increasing quickly, so being able to freely use the weapon was just a matter of time. In theory, now that I'm a 2-star Esper, I should be able to create a void domain of 1 meter in radius. Han started to think about it as he walked to the training facility. Chapter 28. Deeper Layer of Dark Net. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The Extinction Site Administration had hundreds of Espers employed. In order to keep these Espers in shape, there was a huge and advanced training facility. The training center had a large gym, and the equipment were all tailored to the strengths and capabilities of Espers. Other than that, there were also single training rooms where Espers were allowed to shut themselves away to train in peace. Han wanted to try his void end, so he booked a large single training room. At this moment, the majority of Espers were exploring the extinction domain, so there weren't a lot of people there. Han went to the single training room on the top floor. It was about 200 square meters with large glass windows that extended to the ground. The floor and the wall were all built from enhanced carbon fiber. The structure was even stronger than steel, but also lighter and more resilient. Han stood in the center of the training room with his eyes closed, trying to use his mind to slowly gather all the source energy. Shwa. When the source energy was gathered to a certain degree, it suddenly triggered a property change, and opened up a dimension that was 1 meter in radius with Han at the center. This was the void domain. The moment anyone entered this domain, their power would be immediately taken away. Any long-range superpower attacks will vanish the moment they entered this zone. This was a bit different from the power immunity Han already had. Power immunity acted no matter when, even if Han was sleeping. If an Esper attacked him with a power, for example an ice arrow, the moment that ice arrow touched Han, it would melt immediately. But the void domain needed Han to consciously activate it, as well as draining some source energy. If he didn't activate the domain, no one would ever know that he had such skill, so it could be pretty deceptive. Only Han will be able to see the coverage of the void domain, which appeared as a thin layer of light in his eyes. No one else will be able to find out whether Han activated the domain or not. It was very possible that the enemies will charge right into Han to use some power attacks, and then suddenly realize that their power was gone and be completely exposed to Han's counterattack. In conclusion, Void End was a very overbearing and unreasonable power. The moment one entered the domain, everyone would be powerless and be forced to fight against Han with martial arts. Of course, in order to forge iron, the tool itself must be tough. Even if Han could take away the enemy's power, he still needed to be strong enough himself in order to stay alive in fights. Han practiced many times to release and withdraw the domain and used up quite a bit of source energy. Then he started practicing the 46 ensemble training. To every Esper Solider, 46 ensemble was still the basics of the basics. Even if they were in later stage with high achievements, they still won't stop practicing it, because there was a whole list of benefits for practicing this. For instance, when you are tired, it can help you regain energy, relax your body, and increase power and flexibility. Han looked at Pathless Origins database. Apparently high-level Esper soldiers will usually practice 46 ensemble once before they begin their training as a warm-up, and once more after they are done to regain energy and relax the muscles. And Pathless Origin himself was also inclined to recommend practicing 46 ensemble. He thought that as an Esper soldier, regardless of how high level they were, they should never ignore the effects of practicing 46 ensemble and continue to do it until they die. Han turned on the frequency spectrograph and started practicing every move after the holographic teacher. The rhythm during battle and any fundamental skills and practices related to battle were all touched upon in the 46 ensemble. Although it looked like a simple exercise, it was able to exercise every piece of muscle inside Han's body. Han's shadow in the training room became very agile, one moment suddenly imitating an eagle soaring in the sky, another moment mimicking a crimson rabbit surging towards the moon. The benefits of activating the 0-degree brain region with extreme conditions slowly began to surface. As Han's source energy drastically increased, he also felt like he had woken up the memory from a long time ago, making him feel like the 46 ensemble couldn't be more familiar. The predecessor that left behind the Void End Power Crystal must have practiced 46 ensemble very frequently, and now that Han inherited the power from the predecessor, he was able to progress 1,000 times faster in comparison to other novices. Han had looked up the people that previously possessed this power, and the search result was a bit unbelievable for him. There was only an old senior called Yi Shui Han, a 6-star warlord ranked Esper who was naturally talented. He did not work under anyone during his time, and he used that unique and unreasonable power of his to cause havoc everywhere. His whole life could be concluded as a life full with dispute, and he was quite famous in the Milky Way galaxy. Then Yi Shui Han disappeared in the end. No one knew if he was still alive. But if we hypothesize that he died on a foreign planet and passed on his power to Han, it was actually very likely. It was just that, Han couldn't believe how lucky he was. A garbage power crystal he bought for 10,000 GC was actually left behind by the warlord Yi Shui Han. Han couldn't believe it nor deny it. Maybe the answer to whose void end and legacy he inherited will always be a myth. After the afternoon training was completed, Han had some dinner, took a break and went back to his room for some rest. Then he started to write the drug index number and started training in the pool after he was done. Following Pathless Origins instructions, every time Han trained, he will put half of his life on the line in order to push himself to the verge of death. Starting from the second extreme training session, Han only took one source energy pill each time. According to Pathless Origins' explanation later on, it was actually because he was scared that Han would die from the first training, so he told him to take 3 times the normal dose of nuclear energy to protect his life at crucial moments. Now that Han had slowly adapted to this type of crazy training, his drug intake also decreased to the normal amount. With a godlike speed of improvement, Han could always increase his power index by 30 points every day. If compared to the natural growth rate, it was more than 10 times bigger. Even Pathless Origin said more than once that Han's speed of improvement was okay. And with Pathless Origin's strict character, when he says it's okay, then it must be really okay. This continued on for a week. Han followed Pathless Origin's pointers and trained hard every day. His power source index also successfully passed 300. On the night Han passed 300, Pathless Origin suddenly gave Han a link to a website. From today forward you don't have to do regular training anymore, it's pointless for you. Your power is from inheritance, so you just need to fully activate your 0-brain region and then your fundamental skills will naturally be there. Do you have a virtual pod over there? Go visit that website. Pathless Origin told Han. Though this belonged to the Dark Net as well. Han looked at the address and asked curiously. Yep, websites like Little Black's Drug Market is just the first layer of the Dark Net, they are just the things floating on the surface. But what I'm giving you belongs to the second layer, and normal people have no way of even coming close to it. I already added you to the whitelist and gave you access. Pathless Origin explained, and about the website's content, you will know after you see it. But you have to pay close attention. Han nodded and inserted that address onto the login program. He had become more familiar with the dark net's rules now. The dark net was actually like the network rule. Most of the websites need a referrer to give permission in order to let users log on. Han first met Nightwalker, and with Nightwalker as a guarantee, Han was introduced to Pathless Origin. As he became familiar with Pathless Origin also acted as a referrer and introduced Han to another website that was hidden even deeper in the dark net. All these relationships were created to form a hidden network, and those so-called public forums in today's Han's eyes were really ordinary, way too far away from being the dark net's deepest layer. Just how deep was the Galactic Dark Net? What was its deepest layer? Han was completely lost. Chapter 29. Live broadcast of death. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Han took a break for a few hours, and went to the training center at around noon as per usual. In the training center there was a row of public virtual pods for the use of espers that live at the base. After picking one in the corner, Han took out the dark net access card from his necklace. Accessing the dark net required a login program as well as DNA information, so even if someone managed to get Han's access card, without Han's DNA information it will still be useless. The dark net login program was really intelligent. It will automatically encrypt the data, so even the central control system will only know that Han used the virtual pod. About what specifically that pod was used for will be completely confidential. Laying down in the virtual pod, Han pressed the start button. The virtual pod and the laptop had similar functions, but using the pod enhances the user experience. For instance, every day Han visits Pathless Origin's website, the laptop shows the website on a flat screen, whereas the virtual pods will generate a virtual store, and the experience was like shopping in real life. After typing in the address on the screen, the login program verified Han's DNA data and started connecting to Darknet. Very quickly, a virtual world appeared in front of Han's eyes. The address led to a door with blood stains splattered across it. Han stood on the outside and read the descriptions displayed on the screen. This website was called Live Broadcast of Death. It was a dark net video broadcasting website. The description was written as follows. Chosen the most fearless Esper warriors of Milky Way to fight to the death in arena. Due to the amount of blood violence, please view at your discretion. Han was shocked for a bit, real people fighting to the death broadcasted live. The dark net was really a screwed up place, they even have this. With tons of curiosity, Han entered the website. A screen popped up to let Han choose the broadcasts he wished to watch. According to the rules of live broadcast of death, the viewing will charge according to the fighter's ranking. A fight between 2-star espers costed 100 GC, 3-star espers costed 200 GC, and 4-star espers costed 400 GC. And as for fights between 5 stars or above, it's only available at certain times and it costed 1000 GC. Other than that, there were also Esper survival competitions and mass chaotic brawls, which were pretty expensive to watch and were only available during certain times. Aside from watching live broadcasts, people could also watch videos from the past which only costed 1/10 of its broadcast price. So watching 2 stars fight only costed 10 GC. Han saw a lot of loyal fans. They all had a warrior they admired, so they were willing to pay a large amount of money to watch the live broadcasts to get the most updated news about the fighters. They can also set bounties or give rewards to the warriors, so it was kind of like fangirling. Only just that what these guys fangirled about killing. Han wasn't some fanboy, so of course he chose to watch the cheaper replays for past broadcasts. After some consideration, Han felt like his fighting style was closer to a strength descent esper, so he decided to watch a 2-star brawl between 2 strength descent espers. The system automatically withdrew 10 GC from Han's account and sent him onto the battleground. Virtual live broadcast had a huge benefit, and it was that the audience didn't have to watch from their seats, they could also watch on the stage closer to the fighters. Han chose to watch the fight from up close. He figured that Pathless Origin sent him to this place because he wanted him to learn real combat experience from others. Both fighters walked into the iron cage, which was spherical in shape and about 100 meters in radius, so the one losing had nowhere to run. The fight only stopped when one of them died. As for the fighters participating in this duel, there was one muscular man in black hair and another blonde middle-aged man that was smaller in size but still muscular. The stopwatch counted down to 0 and the green light flashed on. The two men charged at each other at the same time. They didn't have any weapons other than their fists. The muscular giant swung his right fist aiming for his enemy's head, but the smaller fighter was very smart. He lowered his body to dodge while returning a hard punch into the enemy's vulnerable belly region, and the giant shouted in pain. A fight between two strength descent espers was the most brutal kind. After all, the taller warrior had the height and weight advantage, and had a higher tolerance to the amount of hits he could take. He saw how sneaky the enemy was, so he held his breath, used his body to tank a punch and immediately swept his big right hand into the face of the smaller fighter. Guntsy, sound of blood coming out, that giant's hand was like a block of concrete, thick and tough. The smaller fighter couldn't dodge in time and the giant's fingers hooked into his mouth and immediately ripped it apart. Blood started to rush out and it went all over Han's face. Although it was just a virtual environment, Han could still smell the thick scent and feel the warmth of the blood. The smaller fighter was placed at a huge disadvantage. He covered his face and started to retreat towards a corner. But as a result, he was oppressed and received a hard beating. All he could do was raise his hands to protect his head. Then when the smaller fighter was about to get killed, he intelligently spotted an opening as the enemy relaxed his stance. He quickly charged out of the suppression and grabbed the giant's two arms with his hands, but he lacked the power and couldn't move him. Under desperation, the smaller fighter started to bite. He took a huge bite at the giant's ear and ripped it off along with half of the giant's face. The giant fell to the ground, but the smaller fighter was not done yet. He took advantage of this and used his fingers to gouge the giant's eyeballs. Then what happened after left Han in extreme shock. The moment the smaller fighter had the advantage, he started using the most merciless and brutal attacks like a mad dog to attack the enemy. When the fight was over, the corpse on the ground was already badly mutilated, even the stomach was ripped open. As a spectator, Han had a sudden urge to puke. That fight was beyond Han's wildest imagination, so at the verge of life and death humans can reveal that much potential and become that merciless. In order to survive, the smaller warrior turned from a human to a wild animal under Han's own eyes. The screen displayed the winner, the smaller fighter, and he was awarded a prize of 8 figures in cash. But there was no smile on his face, because his mouth was ripped open and was still dripping blood. One of his eyes was already blind and the eyeball was dangling from the socket. That's when Han suddenly realized the reason why Pathless Origin told him to watch this merciless live broadcast of death. This was the true face of a battle. If it was just a virtual battle where no one could die and nothing was to be worried about, how could there be such desperate struggle in the face of death like what Han just witnessed? For survival, any moves or tricks that was conventional or unconventional could all be used. For survival, there was no rules you had to worry about. And real battles were just as merciless. Virtual battles can help someone develop their skills, but it can never teach the struggle in the face of death. The fight had ended, and Han's mood still couldn't calm down for a long time. On live broadcast of death, what he felt was the atmosphere of a real battleground. Everyone that participated in the fight were all like demons, putting everything on the line. It was only here, someone can be taught what real battle was. Train using the most extreme method, study the most merciless fights. Without realizing it, Pathless Origin, the odd man that Han met by accident, was leading Han into an unpredictable future. Chapter 30. Base in Danger. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The Dark Net was really a lawless place. When Han left the assessment pod and returned to his room, he was lost in thought. Originally, Han thought that the slaves, illegal drugs, military-grade firearm black market were the darkest trades hidden on the Dark Net. Now that he witnessed the battlefield with blood flying everywhere, Han finally realized, the Dark Net is not as simple as he thought. The people that made the live broadcast of Death Channel obviously didn't care about the Milky Way galactic law. Han really wanted to talk to Pathless Origin about that broadcast channel, but he resisted the urge. Although Han always called Pathless Origin his teacher, their relationship was not really like that since the term teacher was just a polite form of address. Han was scared of pissing him off because after all, having such a knowledgeable man from another planet to help him was a very precious opportunity that he didn't want to tamper with. If it wasn't for Pathless Origin, Han might never have come in contact with the deeper levels of Dark Net in this lifetime. Pathless Origin said that live broadcast of death was the second layer of the Dark Net. Does that mean there's still a third layer? Han thought to himself in excitement. Then, Han shook his head. He spent too much time on the broadcast channel and it was already midnight. He should go back to work now. Drugs, equipment, watching broadcasts, they all costed money, and that 1,300 GC he made from writing index reports every month was his only income. The increase in level was not only increased source energy, it also enhanced Han's intelligence. Now, Han could keep the time to write up an index report to just below half an hour. That was a speed that the Han a few weeks ago could never even imagine. Including the 1.5 hours needed to collect additional data, Han only needed to work for about 2 hours every day, making his life much easier than before. After finishing the report, Han asked Pathless Origin 3 questions as usual. It seemed like his relationship with him has been improving. In the past Pathless Origin always used the simplest language to answer Han, but now he usually added a few more sentences to his answer as if he was scared that Han didn't fully understand. In conclusion, your power is power immunity, you are destined to face other people in a fight for survival. You didn't make the wrong observation, I never emphasize the importance of techniques. Techniques are obviously important, but they can be developed through repetitive training. However, your will and confidence isn't something you can develop at home. It needs you to go onto the battlefield and participate those bloody battles. Training in the extreme cold or watching the live broadcast of a merciless brawl, it was all to train you to become a warrior with a strong will. A true warrior should carry a strong will, and even if one day he is killed in battle, his will still can't scatter. You must reach that degree in order to be qualified to be a true warrior, and that's also the only way to reach the pinnacle. Of course, at this stage it is still more important to train under the extremely cold environment. After all, you inherited someone else's power, so if you don't completely reveal the source energy and potential of your predecessor, you are not only not fulfilling the responsibility to yourself, you are also being irresponsible for that warrior that left behind the power for you. Tonight you can go to the 0.20 degrees Celsius water, you just need to take one source energy pill. I trust Little Black's skills, his drugs won't have any problems. But just to be safe, bring the 0.degree joviality pill too, and take it when you can't hold it anymore. About your training progress, I don't care. What's most important is for you to enter the struggling state in the face of despair. As long as you enter that state, any type of training you do will have doubled effect, and any training exercise will activate potential. You got it. Han quickly replied, understood, thank you teacher for your pointers. Get lost, you wasted so much of my words and time. If it wasn't for Little Black, who has time to even look at you? Pathless Origin never forgot to scowl at Han for a bit at the end of his answer, it had become a habit of his. In fact Han can clearly feel, under those harsh words there was some caring. But of course, a person with that much pride will always use Night Walker as an excuse. But Han didn't tell him about one thing, it was about his power. Pathless Origin always thought Han's power was power immunity, but it's not. What Han had was a power that was infinitely times stronger than power immunity, but now that Pathless Origin had a fixated idea of what Han's power was, Han became scared that he would piss off him if he tells him that he actually had Void End. I guess I will wait till later to tell him. Han thought for a bit and said to himself. Training, writing index report, watching death broadcasts, it seemed like Han's life only had these three things to do now. He had been making great training progress, and every week he could achieve an increase of 230 points in his power source index score on average. Pathless Origin also instructed Han to enter a colder layer of the pool after every week in order to increase the intensity of training. The changes that have been taking place on Han's body were very noticeable. 1 month after coming to the base, Han was a bit skinnier than before. The intense training had taken away the last bit of fat on Han's body, making his body shape more standard, with broader shoulders and a slimmer waist. Although it looked skinny in clothes, but the muscles on his body were very resilient. Another night of training was completed. The time was still early, but the cafeteria was already filled with people, a lot of them sporting eye bags. No one was talking and they all had their heads down in the food. It was a completely different atmosphere than when Han just arrived to the base. In the beginning, every time he came to the cafeteria it was filled with laughter and joy, with people talking about all kinds of gossips. But now, the base's atmosphere made Han feel much more stifled. It was as if suddenly no one liked to talk anymore. "Still want a meat bun?" that old lady serving food asked in a smile. "Yep, and 1 large cup of hot chocolate please," Han added. "Why do you like to eat meat buns that much? I feel like all the meat buns I made were not enough for you to eat." The lady joked with Han. "It's obviously because you have great cooking skills. I've never had a meat bun this tasty, so I can never get enough of it. You little boy." The old lady had a bit smile on her face, and she quickly put in a few extra pieces of delicious meat when making the meat bun for Han. "Thank you, Ms." Han took the breakfast and was about to go back to his room to eat, but just when he walked to the door, he saw a 27.28-year-old soldier running out from the direction of the extinction domain, in his full battle suit and his body was covered in blood. "Dr. Ree! Hurry to the clinic. Someone's injured!" that soldier yelled. Dr. Ree, who was in the middle of eating breakfast, quickly put down that half bowl of soup he was drinking, grabbed his glasses and ran right out of the cafeteria and to the clinic with that soldier. After a few seconds, an electric jeep appeared from the direction of the extinction domain, a few soldiers jumped off carrying a stretcher and sprinted towards the clinic. The guy on the stretcher seemed to be in a really bad condition. His face was all pale white and his body was covered in blood, dripping all over the ground as they moved. After the stretcher passed, the cleaners quickly mopped clean the blood stains on the floor. The people in the cafeteria discussed in small voices as they cleaned. "How many is it now?" "Today's 3rd. That's so unfortunate, don't even know if he can be saved or not. Chief Lee is still down there, they haven't come up in a long time, right?" "Of course not, the assault troops have been down there for about half a month now even the people working above ground are already nervous to death. We can only imagine how much pressure the troops working in the domain are experiencing."